Hi again then guys, and welcome to another Special Projects Replica build on GT6. And straight off the bat, if I sound a bit groggy today, it's because I am. So this particular replica is of a higher performance version of the Aston Martin Vantage. This is a really cool car, as far as I'm concerned, kind of like the Bentley of super sports cars in the 90s. Big, supercharged, 2 tons of British beef, monster in a straight line. Not exactly ideal around corners though. This particular replica is of the V600 Le Mans version. Now it's named after the Le Mans, but it's not a race car. You can kind of tell that it's not a race car. It weighs 2 tons. Of course it's not a race car. Now the V600 part refers to the power. This is more powerful than the normal Vantage, and in real life the V600 version is available with a different front grille, which totally changes the front end of the car, and it's also got, if I remember correctly, some extra air intakes on the bonnet, that kind of thing. Now obviously we cannot do that on Gran Turismo, so you work with what you've got. So as far as the visuals, it's a production model, so you can pretty much choose whatever colour you want. I wanted a colour that would really pop and look great on the car, so I went for a British racing style green, but also with a bit of irony thrown in there, because the green that I went for is actually called Jaguar Racing Green Metallic. And guess which manufacturer that comes from? Lotus. No, obviously it comes from Jaguar. But it looks great on this car, in my opinion at least. It's metallic, it looks great, especially under sunlight, say in early morning or late in the day on tracks. And as far as the rims, I've actually opted to leave those stock because they look the closest to the actual V600's wheels, and they just look more authentic to the car overall. So that's basically it for the visuals. So we'll go first of all to, of course, the mechanical side of things, and then take it out, as we always do, to a racetrack. Now, as I've mentioned before on various other tunes, of course, I do like to, if at all possible, round off things like the PP level, to make the car not just a replica of the real vehicle, but also usable. In this particular case, it's rounded off to 520, which is a little bit more niched. It won't necessarily make a perfect seasonal event car, but at least it does have some usability there if you want it. Now, it is a street-based vehicle, so we've gone for sport soft tyres, although, of course, you could go for whatever tyres you want. I've left the brakes stock to keep that authentic street feel. Suspension, we've got the ride height on 120, which may seem very high, but it actually isn't. In the case of this car, it's basically street-level ride height. It's on this particular vehicle, that's just the ride height that looks realistic. As far as springs, you want 1050 and 750. Dampers and anti-roll I've actually left on 3. Because although it is a more performance-oriented version, at the end of the day the Vantage, especially in this form, was still a luxury car, so you don't want it to be overly stiff and too much like a race car. I've gone for neutral camber and toe, but of course, feel free to give it those if you want to. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second. As far as the diff, you've got options of course. It depends if you want it to be better around corners or more tail-happy around corners. Personally, I wanted it to be a bit better to counteract the 2-ton weight. So, I gave it the highest initial torque, lowest acceleration and braking, as you can see, and we'll talk about the handling a bit more in a second, but for me personally, that suits my driving style. As far as power, we do have an oil change, so you need to bear that in mind, and then we've upgraded the exhaust manifold and the cat. Apart from that, you don't need to do anything. It rounds off really nicely to 600 horsepower. And as far as the weight, you actually want to add 26 kilos of ballast. I would also recommend window weight reduction, as you can see, and the reason for that is so that you can put that ballast all the way to the back, and that has a twofold benefit. Well, technically 3. The first thing is it brings you up to the weight of the real car. The second benefit is it rounds it off to 520 pp, and the third benefit is having a tiny bit of ballast over the rear, a negligible amount really, but an amount nonetheless, improves of course rear wheel traction. So it's a triple win. But that's it for the weight. So for the gearbox, we are running the real ratios, at least that I could find, of the V600. An auto setting of 205 for this particular car, and then for the individual gears, 3.3, 2.2, 1595, 1210, 970 and 810, with a final drive of 3.1. So that's it overall for the setup. Now let's take it out to a track. Now, as far as handling goes on a car like this, well, it weighs 2 tons, so what you expect, it's not going to be able to outmaneuver a KTM crossbow anytime soon, but as a replica, especially of a car which is designed to be extremely fast at the same time as being big, spacious, luxurious and, well, heavy, it does a good job of that. The handling feels, I would say, very purposeful. It's not the most nimble of vehicles, but at the same time the handling is definitely not bad at all. It corners very well for such a big, heavy car, and as you can see, you can get the tail out if you want to. Overall, it's fun to drive, it's powerful, it's fast, and it's an exclusive replica. So for those Aston Martin fans out there, I hope you find it fun, and of course, potentially useful for racing. But that's it overall for this particular build. Of course, if you are new to the channel and you'd like to see other builds which we've done like this, and there are lots of them, you can check out the playlist at the end of this video, or subscribe down below. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.